Hey students, sorry it's been a while, but these things happen, but I'm glad to be back, and I just wanted to tell you something. Faerun is huge. If you include the lands such as the Great Glacier to the north, the jungles of Chult, and the tropical coasts of Halrua to the south, and the endless wastes to the east, Faerun's lands are 9,500 square miles. And in all of that we have the gods of Faerun, and their portfolios or spheres of influence, dividing the processes and autonomies amongst themselves. While the cleric's domains are limited, these are mortal limitations. Maybe. You see, there were plenty more domains in the past, including air, chaos, evil, luck, water, fire, earth, protection, and destruction, to name a few. But these don't exist anymore, and the 12 core domains that we have are covered by each of the pantheons and gods. Auril is a goddess of winter, Talos is a god of storms, Umber-Lee is a goddess of the sea. All of them answer to the Tempest domain. Considering our pantheism as a general rule, I wonder if that therefore means a cleric of the Tempest domain could request spells from any of the three. And perhaps that's why there are so few domains now. Worship and prayer is generated by mortals of the lifeblood of our gods. Without it, they lose status and ability. If a cleric were to pray to Umber-Lee when on the sea and Talos when on the land, then those witnessing the miraculous spells and abilities of the cleric would pray more fervently to the god whose name it was in. One cleric, but two gods benefit. But today, we're going to look at what the gods were. Those that are with us now, the mainstream entities of worship, and see what it is that they influenced and controlled in the past. Because the rules of our gods have changed, and relatively recently too. I think that we can benefit from knowing what they were capable of before our time, as the past and present inspire the future. To that end, I'll be advising the name, titles, and avatar forms of each of the gods of mainstream worship in our time. Did you know, in the previous ages, the gods had spells unique to their worshippers, and some gave supernatural abilities also? Although my expertise lies in research, I've taken the mathemagica of previous ages and attempted to recreate the spells as they would be expressed in the 5th Age, one per god. I've also taken a few from a book of learning by another incredible trio of mages, called Blackstaff's Book of 1000 Spells. I will be putting a link in the bottom of the video, out of character for a moment, sorry, with where you can find that book, because a lot of those spells are influenced and replicas of the spells that are in previous editions of D&D, and it is fantastic. Everyone should have a copy of it. Go out and buy it. Anyway, for those that I have created, I'm not sure how balanced they are, and I'm certainly unsure if Mistra would allow any of them to be learned or cast. But I give them to you to give a better basis of comparison as to how varied and different each god is to the others. So today I give you the latest lecture in the Zone of Truth series, the Omnipotent Report. Welcome back. Now, before I begin for actual, I have to warn you that this may be a longer lecture than normal. There are 37 gods in the core pantheons, and there's a bit of info to cover for each one. So if I suddenly stop at L, you'll know that I later decided to turn this into a two-parter. And I wrote that part first. Coming back to it right now, I only got up to G, so H and onwards will be in the next lecture. But anyway, here goes. Auril, goddess of winter, frost maiden, ice dawn, the cold goddess, Lady Frostkiss. Her symbol is a white, six-pointed snowflake on a grey diamond with a white border. In the 3rd Age, this was a 5-pointed snowflake, and in the 5th Age, this is again a 6-pointed snowflake. Her portfolio is cold and winter, and she is the most powerful in those areas affected by deep winters. Her domains are nature, and tempest. Auril charges her clergy to cover all the lands with ice, quench fire wherever it is found, lessen the winds and the cold, cut down windbreaks and chop holes in walls and roofs that my breath may come in. Work darkness to hide the cursed sun, so that the chill I bring may slay. Take the life of an arctic creature only in great need, but slay all others at will. Make all Faerun fear me. Upon being embraced by the goddess, clerics of Auril become immune to natural cold damage and the effects of exposure. Auril's avatars are most often in two forms, the Frost Maiden or Ice Dawn. The Frost Maiden is a lithe, furious figure of action and is the most often seen avatar of Auril in all regions of Faerun, except for the south and east. Her skin is blue, her hair is long, free-flowing and white, and a fine gown of white lawn thickly furred with frost swirls about her. She can only cast spells that have a negative effect on plants and animals, such as to bring them to be rotted or to be held, except in the case of animal summoning spells, which always bring arctic creatures to her aid. The avatar of Ice Dawn is a silent, gliding apparition of icy hauteur, an impassive figure in an ornate crown and hooked, spurred armor of opaque, light blue ice. She casts no spells. Her primary spell that I've decided to recreate is the Heart of Ice. 8-level necromancy, casting time 1 action, range touch, components, verbal and somatic, duration instantaneous. You make a melee spell attack against a creature within 5 feet of you. On a hit, the target takes 10d10 plus 30 cold damage. The heart of any creature killed by this spell is frozen and shatters, and the creature cannot be resurrected by any spell other than Wish or True Resurrection. Azuth, or Azuth, God of Wizards. The High One, Patron of Wizards, the Lord of Spells, the Hand of Sorcery, the Lord of Spellcraft. His symbol is a human left hand pointing upwards, outlined in a nimbus of blue fire. This symbol has not changed. His portfolio is wizards and mages and other spellcasters, although to a much lesser degree. In a way, his portfolio is Vancian spellcasting. His domain is knowledge. His dogma is that reason is the best way to approach magic, and that it may be examined and reduced to its component parts through study and meditation. Calm and caution are the watchwords of Azuthan, clergy members as they strive to avoid mistakes that even magic cannot undo. They are taught to use art, magic, wisely, and to be always mindful of when it is best not to use magic. He didn't do too well in the Spell Plague, by the way. Azuth is commonly depicted as a white-bearded, white-haired, vigorous old man dressed in grey silk robes, carrying a staff 1.5 times his height that is topped with a huge carbon-cut topaz. He never wears a hat. Azuth can change shape at will, and he often appears as a 20-foot-tall pyramid with no apparent eyes or mouth that is covered with sparkling, pulsing lights. In this shape, he glides along, perfectly able to see, speak, and unleash spells. The spell for Azuth that I have chosen to recreate is Azuth's Exalted Spell. 6-level transmutation, casting time 1 minute, range self, components, verbal, somatic, and material, the material of which is a spell scroll of the spell to be augmented. Duration 24 hours. This spell can affect any 1st to 4th level spell that the caster has memorized. The chosen spell becomes castable 3 times without using up the appropriate spell slot. The 2nd and 3rd use of the chosen spell requires no material nor verbal components, and their casting time becomes a bonus action. Only one exalted spell can be held in memory at a time. Repeated casts of the Azuth's Exalted Spell will cause the new chosen spell to replace the previous one. Bane, God of Tyranny, the Black Lord. Lord Bane, the Lord of Darkness, the Black Hand, the Dark One. His symbol is an upright black hand, palm out and fingers together, usually on a red field. In the 3rd age, this became a black fist squeezing green rays of energy, and in the 5th age, this has reverted to the same as the 2nd age. His portfolio is strife, hatred, and tyranny. His domain is war. Bane whispers to initiates in their dreams, "Serve no one but me. Fear me always and make others fear me even more than you do. The Black Hand always strikes down those who stand against it in the end. Defy me and die, or in your death find loyalty, for I shall compel it. Submit to my will, since true power can only be gained through service to me. It is the doom of those unguided by me to let power spill through their hands." Bane preferred never to be seen in person and hence almost never sent a pure avatar to the realms. He did possess mortals from time to time, however, to serve as his avatars, preferring young and good-looking men of slim build, cultured tastes, wealth and power, often bored young noblemen. Any person Bane possessed quickly assumed the appearance of a handsome, black-haired man of oily looks and a derisive, even cruel manner. Bane's control over a body was complete, though the owner retained awareness of the body's deeds and surroundings. Often, the person whose body Bane inhabited went mad, watching Bane ruin the lives of those around him and all he held dear. The spell for Bane that I have recreated is called the Doom of Bane. It's a 4th level necromancy, casting time 1 action, range, touch. Components: verbal, somatic, and material. The material being 1 suit of armor and 1 set of mortal humanoid remains. The duration is permanent. The spell transforms the corpse and armor into a helmed horror, which rises 3 rounds after the spell is cast. This helmed horror is under the command of the caster, but will not obey any orders that run against the dogma or faith of Bane. If the caster is slain, the helmed horror gains independence. As long as the helmed horror lives, the humanoid used in the raising cannot be resurrected, not even with a wish spell. Basharba, goddess of misfortune. The Maid of Misfortune, Black Bess, Lady Doom, the Maid of Misrule, Tyche's unpleasant daughter. His symbol is a rack of sharp-pointed black antlers on a red triangular field. This symbol has remained the same through the ages, though the red background has disappeared. Her portfolio is random mischief, misfortune, bad luck, and accidents. Her domain is trickery. The ethos of Basharba is the beliefs of Timora stood on their head. Bad things happen to everyone, and only by following Basharba may a person perhaps be spared the worst of her effects. Too much good luck is a bad thing, and to even it out, the wise should plan to undermine the fortunate. Whatever happens, it can only get worse. Basharba rarely walks Faerun in avatar form, but when she does appear, it's as an impossibly tall and thin, yet voluptuously graceful woman, whose long flowing unbound hair is snow white, and whose face bears the loveliness of lost Tyche. Yet her eyes, yellow and red-rimmed, blaze with madness, and her skin shifts slowly and continuously in hue, from dead white to mauve and back again. This is a spell that has been copied from Blackstaff's Book of 1000 Spells by Scott Bean and Heath Harris. Misfortune. Casting time 1 action. Range, touch. Components: somatic. Duration: concentration up to a minute. Make a melee spell attack against a creature within reach. On a hit, you can curse one of the target's ability scores of your choice. The creature has disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, saving throws, with the chosen ability of the spell's duration. The creature can attempt a wisdom saving throw at the end of each of its turns. On a successful save, the creature can end one of the disadvantages affecting it, either ability checks, attack rolls, or saving throws. Once a creature makes 3 saving throws, the spell ends for that creature. Bala, god of murder. His symbol is a white face on a human skull, surrounded by a counterclockwise stream of teardrops. In the 5th Age, these teardrops change to drops of blood. His portfolio presided over death, especially violent or ritual death. His domain is life. No, only joking. His domain is death. Baalists believe that every murder committed strengthened Holy Baal. As a result, they viewed murder as both a pastime and a duty. Baalists were required to deal death once in every 10 days during the darkest period at the heart of the night. If imprisonment or other constraining circumstances made this impossible, they had to murder twice for each death missed. In accordance with the Lord of Murder's teachings, Bala strove to ensure that before they died, Murder victims knew who was killing them, and that their death was in the name of Baal. Baal rarely appeared in avatar form, but when he did in urban settings, he typically assumed a form known as the Slayer. The Slayer looked like a human male corpse with a feral face, ivory white skin, and deep lacerations that endlessly wept black ichor that vanished before it struck anything. Baal manifested in rural settings, such as the Moonshays, as a giant of a man. The Ravager, as this form was known, was over 30 feet tall, with long, tough sinews, a flowing beard and mane of hair, eyes that glowed with the flames of Gehenna, a face twisted in a grimace of supernatural hatred, and 2 7-foot-long curved horns protruding from his forehead. Baal's spell that I've decided to recreate is called Decay. 4th level transmutation, casting time 1 action, range, touch, components, verbal, somatic, and material, the material being a holy symbol of Baal. Duration, 24 hours. This spell accelerates the aging of any item but has no effect on living matter. Over the course of the 24 hours, the item will decay to a broken and useless state. The item must be smaller than 5 cubic feet in size. Unattended items do not receive a saving throw, and targeting held items means the holder can succeed on a charisma saving throw to negate the effect. The effect can also end on a successful dispel magic, but any aging already accrued is not reversed. This spell cannot affect magical items of legendary or artifact quality. Shantae, or Shantae, goddess of agriculture. The Great Mother, the Grain Goddess, the Golden Goddess, she who shapes all. Her symbol is either a budding flower encircled by a sunburst or a sheaf of golden wheat on a green field. In the Third Age, this had changed to a blooming rose on a wreath of golden grain. In the Fourth Age, the sheaf of grain was interchangeable with the rose. Her portfolio is agriculture, plants cultivated by humans, farmers, gardeners, and summer itself. Her domain is life. Shantae's faith is one of nurture and growth. Agricultural sayings and farming parables dot her teachings. Growing and reaping, the eternal cycle, is a common thread of Shantae's faith. Destruction for its own sake or leveling without rebuilding is anathema to the church. Shantaean priests are charged to nature, to tend, to plant whenever and wherever possible, protect the trees and plants, and save their seeds so that what is destroyed can be replaced. See to the fertility of the earth, but let the human womb see to its own, and to eschew fire. Shantae was portrayed as a kindly white-haired woman of middle years, wise by virtue of a long life well lived. She has a lush beauty, tanned, brown skin, and a powerful build. She is usually draped in white robes of the finest linen or heavy silk, cinched by a girdle embroidered with all manner of growing plants. Leaves, vines, and flowers twine through her hair and about her body, some even seeming to grow from her head. The spell of Shantae that I've decided to recreate is Favor of the Goddess, a 2nd level transmutation spell with a casting time of 1 action, a range of touch, components, verbal, somatic, and material, the material being the holy symbol. Duration, instantaneous. This spell revitalizes or doubles the yield of plants. Plants that are tainted, diseased, spoiled, or poisoned are rendered wholesome by the spell. This will not make plants normally poisonous to humanoids any safer to eat. If this spell is cast on a container of plant-derived food such as fruits or vegetables, the food will double in size and increase in flavor. Cyric, God of Lies, Prince of Madness, the Dark Sun, the Black Sun, the Mad God, Lord of 3 Crowns. His symbol is a white skull lacking a jawbone on a purple or black sunburst, unchanging in all ages. His portfolio is murder, strife, lies, intrigue, deception, and delusion. His domain is trickery. Cyric's faith is one of control by any means necessary. Force and deception are used in equal measure to spread his word. He, or the masks he wears, is highly venerated by those of black hearts and evil deeds, from petty murderers to evil rulers of empires. Cyric priests are given the following charge: death to traitors, death to all who oppose Cyric, Bow down before the supreme power of Cyric, and yield to him the blood of all who do not believe in his supreme power. Cyric is seldom seen on Faerun, but most often has appeared as a slim man with blazing dark eyes and chalk-white skin who speaks caustically and sarcastically, and acts duplicitously, but with firm purpose, save when he laughs wildly or discusses possible courses of action with himself in different voices in obvious insanity. He believes himself master of all, and often underestimates opponents because he simply cannot comprehend that they will not instantly fall before him. He uses spells from any school, but refuses to have his avatar raise dead, reincarnate, or resurrect anyone. If you've died, you have failed. The spell that I have decided to recreate for Cyric is Dark Aura. It's a 5th level transmutation spell. Casting time 1 action, has an area of effect 20-foot radius, components verbal and somatic, duration concentration up to 1 minute. This spell creates a spherical aura of doom radiating 20 feet in all directions from the caster. While within the aura, all allies have advantage on attack rolls and all enemies have disadvantage on attack rolls and wisdom saving throws. Denir, or Denir, God of Writing. Lord of all glyphs and images, the scribe of Ogma. His symbol is a single candle set above a staring purple human eye with a triangular pupil, or a single lit candle. His portfolio is glyphs, images, literature, literacy, scribes, pictorial and literary art, cartography. His domain is knowledge. Denir believes that information should be free to all, and all should be able to read it, so that lying tongues cannot distort things all out of proportion. Denir and clerics are to write down all that people say, believe, and observe, leaving others to judge what is true, of value, and proper. For that which is not written is lost, and there must be room for all tastes, all tongues, and all expression. Information that does not harm should be made free to all. Denir most often appears as a balding sage with a huge flaring white beard and eyes of intense blue or violet, though he has been known to appear younger, especially when in disguise. His voluminous robes are covered in glyphs and symbols that seem to serve as some sort of code to remind him of events and pieces of information, but which cause random effects. Some standard glyphs and symbols, some bizarre miscellaneous spell effects, or just odd happenings to any who touch them. He usually carries quill, pens, scrolls, and tomes, and may even let some of these fall and be left behind. The spell that I've decided to recreate for Denir has already been recreated from Blackstaff's book of 1000 spells. It is the 5th level transmutation Shift Glyph. Has a casting time of 1 minute, range of 60 feet, components verbal and somatic, duration concentration, up to an hour. All magical glyphs and symbols within range faintly glow and can be safely read and identified if you're familiar with them. In addition, you can select one of the glyphs or symbols and move it safely to another suitable surface within range without triggering its effects. This spell prevents the spellcaster from triggering glyphs and symbols within range while maintaining concentration, but doesn't extend this protection to other creatures that may trigger them. Aldath, Goddess of Peace. Goddess of Singing Waters, the Quiet One, Mother Guardian of Groves, the Green Goddess, the Mother of the Waters. Her symbol is a waterfall plunging into a still pool without causing any disturbance of its waters, or a circular sky blue disc fringed with green ferns. Her portfolio is quiet places, springs, stillness, peace, waterfalls, and druid groves. Her domains are life and nature. Aldath teaches that peace can only come from within and cannot be taught or imposed. It must be reached through thought and meditation. The faithful of Aldath should seek stillness and therefore find peace. They are to plant trees and green leaf to things and tend such things when they need it, wherever they may be. Aldath clerics are instructed to nurture and aid and not to restrict or punish. They may defend, but not punish. Aldathian may work violence only to defend, but they may slay no thing of the forest, except to prevent it from slaying themselves or another under their protection. Aldath prefers not to appear in avatar form often. She seems almost shy. When she does appear, it's usually to wounded beings who have found their way into one of her sacred places or to her worshippers. Aldath takes the form of a tall, thin, yet graceful and beautiful, translucent female human, or an raid, or an aquatic elf. She can be seen through at all times. Her feet are bare, her hair looks like spun glass or flowing ice and is colourless like water, and her eyes are deep green. Aldath's green silken garments flow clingily around her, yet the sight of her soothes lustful thoughts rather than arousing them. She radiates stillness and peace. The spell that I've decided to recreate for Aldath is called the Water of Aldath, a ritual spell, level 7 conjuration. Casting time 1 minute. Components: verbal, somatic, and material, with the material being a sprig of holly and a vial of holy water blessed by Aldath. The duration is 24 hours. The spell creates 3 potions known as the Water of Aldath. Water of Aldath, when a creature drinks it, neutralizes all poisons, cures all diseases, removes all curses, and restores 2d8 plus the caster's wisdom modifier in hit points. When poured on a 5-foot area, it destroys mold and dangerous fungi, and any pollutants, diseases, or oils tainting water within the area are also banished. Gond, God of craft, Wonderbringer, the Lord of all smiths, the inspiration divine, the holy maker of all things. His symbol is a shining toothed wheel or cog with 4 spokes in ivory, bone, or metal. His portfolio is artifice, craft, construction, smithwork. His domain is knowledge. Beliefs of the Gondar can be summed up as actions count. Intentions and thought are one thing, but in the end it is the result. What remains after the sword is forged, the battle is fought, that is the most important. Talk is cheap, and for others, those who truly serve Gond, do. Gond's avatar is rarely seen by mortals outside his temples. He much prefers to manifest in a lesser manner. His avatar sometimes appears as a short, slight man with straw blonde hair, at other times as a burly, red-hued smith, and yet others a gnome. In any form, his sharp, bright, dark eyes stare out of a forge-scarred face that always bears an alert, inquiring expression. He wears a scorched smith's smock over nondescript leathers, and at will can summon into being around himself glass steel plate armor that hovers over his body at a close distance, piece by piece, rather than actually encasing his form. He has a mighty hammer that he uses at his divine forge, and as a weapon when necessary. His spell that I've decided to recreate is a fun level 6 level conjuration spell called Fantastic Machine. Has a casting time of 1 action, components, verbal, somatic, and material, the material being a holy symbol of Gond that is not consumed, and the duration of 1 minute. This spell creates an illusory machine of fantastical shape and design, of huge size. This machine can be placed within 100 feet of the caster, and can move up to 60 feet per round as directed by the caster when they use a bonus action. It can attempt one of the following tasks. Push. It can attempt a strength check action once per turn with a strength of 26 to push, knock over, or break an object of huge size or smaller. Examples of this would be to push a heavy object up to 40 feet around, to knock over a creature or object, or break down a door. Pull. It can pull massive weights up an incline or cliff to a weight limit of 50 times the caster's own drag capacity. The Fantastic Machine's contact is by a shadowy magical grip on the item, not any grip that could mar or break it. Its movement rates are the same as under pushing. Lift. The Fantastic Machine can lift with the same limitations as pulling. Dig. The Fantastic Machine can dig a 10-foot diameter hole 20 foot per round through solid rock. Throw. The Fantastic Machine can throw objects up to its own pulling weight, up to 300 times the caster's casting modifier. So if you have a casting modifier of 4, that is 300 times 4, 1,200 feet. Attack rolls are made with advantage. A typical boulder that could be thrown by this deals 3d12 plus 8 damage on a successful hit. And that's where we're going to leave this lecture, because it's huge so far. Expect at least 3 more of these. Coming up next, and very soon, we'll pick this up again with our next deity, He of the Unsleeping Eyes. Until that day, to be continued.